Greetings once again from quarantine, everybody. Today on the Frontstretch wrap-up, we have the man in Richmond himself, Adam Cheek. I know, Adam, you weren't at the racetrack this weekend, but I know you watched everything that went on from the truck race, both Xfinity races, the Cup race, while producing our wonderful Washington Nationals games on the radio, of course. Let's get to Sunday, though. I know some people were debating whether or not the 400-lapper was a good race or it was a snoozer. Some people say by short track standards, it was really not good. But some people say in the purest form of things, comers and goers, strategy, tire fall off, somewhat, you may debate that too, that it was good. Where do you fall on that spectrum of things?
It's cliche to say I'm kind of in the middle because, of course, I had the distraction of producing the Washington Nationals while I was watching it. But it seemed like a fun race. I watched quite a bit of it, keeping up with it on Twitter. I had updates rolling through my feed and had it on the TV in there. Brad and Joey, I think the biggest thing for me, they had the battle for the lead for a little while late in the race. So it was a teammate battle for the lead, which is a lot of fun to watch, of course. You had Brad and Austin Dillon and Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick at points cycling through the lead throughout the race. Keselowski, of course, the overall dominant car, led almost 200 laps. But overall, I think it was a fun race. It wasn't the most entertaining, but at the same time, you had the tire fall off. You had the guys that were using pit strategy, and you had pit road playing a factor with someone like Ryan Blaney, who ended up missing pit road. And then on the other side of things, Austin Dillon, who missed pit road and was able to come back and still finish in the top five.
Yeah, I go back and forth too. I mean, I was there, so I was seeing it all play out. And part of me was like, all right, I could really use a caution here. I could really use a restart. But at the same time, when you're going with the stage racing, you don't see a lot of green flag pit stops or strategy that comes into play. So I thought that was a breath of fresh air. The racing itself wasn't the best that I've ever seen, but it wasn't the worst I've ever seen. Kind of just was. But this has kind of been par for the course when it comes to Richmond for the past few years. So although it's cliche, I do fall in the middle a little bit with that too. I voted yes on Jeff Gluck's Was It a Good Race poll because I think that storyline-wise, it was a really, really compelling race. So let's get to that. Austin Dillon, I don't know what he's been eating, what he's been drinking, what RCR has been doing, but he has come out of literally nowhere to have his best two-race stretch of his entire Cup career to open up the playoffs. And he's over 30, something like that, points clear. I think 36 points clear of the cutoff going into Bristol. He's going to make the round of 12. Raise your hand if you had that happening, because I sure didn't.
I did not. I think he would have been my first pick in the first four to get eliminated from the playoffs.
Same.
On the playoff grid for sure. And last week, if memory serves, he had a good run off of 4 on Harvick and could have won, maybe given another lap and a couple of good runs off the corners. And at Richmond, I would look up at the TV and he was out front. And I was like, what? Is this like a pit cycle or something?
Right.
And then he was still out front, and then he would cycle back to the lead a couple of times. And he had a good enough car, like I said, where he missed pit road that time, came in and was able to use the fresh tires and strategy and everything and just the pure speed of that car to get back up to 4th. He battled for 3rd late in the race with Logano, but still a top 5 finish. Like you said, the best 2-race stretch of his career.
I mean, if he didn't speed on pit road earlier on the race, if he didn't miss pit road under green for his last pit stop, he may have been able to challenge for the win. I think it still may have been a tall task because Brad seemed to have them all covered, but I don't know what's going on here. Like seriously, I mean, I think the last time RCR won a race on pure speed that wasn't on a super speedway was 2013 when Kevin Harvick was still there, which feels like a decade ago at this point. Yeah. And I don't think it's unfair to say that if the 3 team keeps this up, especially going to Bristol, which is one of his best tracks, then you got Talladega in the next round, and he's won on a super speedway before. You got the Roval, which is obviously a wild card for everybody. I mean, and he said too, in the round of 8, that's his best round statistically because he loves Martinsville. Yeah. It's not out of the question, I think, that they could get a victory before the season's over. And even he said himself, his goal ultimately is to win a Cup championship. I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves when we're talking about that. But you got to entertain the thought right now because they're running with top 5 speed.
Yeah, and I think the biggest example of that to me was with Richmond. I had totally forgotten about the earlier pit road penalty as well, because he and Hamlin both had those speeding penalties like 100 laps in, something like that. He recovered. Hamlin just kind of ran mid-pack most of the race, like 13th, 14th, and finished in that range. Dillon was able to drive his way back up into the top 5.
So let's talk about the race winner, Brad Keselowski. As you said, he led a little under 200 laps, the most on the evening. And Richmond has been a good place historically for him. It was his second win in his career there. But I think that there's a bigger picture storyline developing here, and that is the fact that on the 750 horsepower package, which, by the way, is what we're going to have at Phoenix, and by the way, Brad Keselowski has the third most playoff points in the field, and by the way, he's probably going to be in the Final Four. Brad Keselowski is really good with this package on these types of tracks. He won at Loudon. He ran well at Phoenix. He wins at Richmond. And Eric Estep, who we had on last week on the Frontstretch wrap-up, he actually tweeted after the race that it's not crazy to think of Brad Keselowski as the championship favorite over Harvick and Hamlin because of his prowess on this package at these types of tracks. If he can get to Phoenix, I think that he and the 2 crew, especially with Jeremy Bones atop the pit box, I would be honestly ready to call them the championship favorite because of how well they've run with this specific package on these types of tracks. Do you think I'm right on that, or do you think it's still the Harvick and Hamlin show?
I would still lean towards Harvick and Hamlin just for now, but I will say, like, throughout the season, it's been Harvick Hamlin kind of having the back and forth. One will win one week, one will win the next. They split at Pocono. But Keselowski's just kind of been lurking back there. He's got a few wins already this season, even before Richmond. And he's just kind of that's the way Keselowski always seems to be, but not in a bad way. He's always just kind of there, but he's always right place, right time if he needs to be. And I think Richmond was the best example of that. Of course, last time he won there, 2014, he led all but 17 laps in one of the most dominating performances I think we've seen in the last 5-6 years. But he's always just there, but it's in the best way possible. He's always there to capitalize. And then at Richmond, he just comes out, doesn't have the best car early on. It was obviously Dillon and Harvick that led most of the way. And then Keselowski's car kind of comes into its own halfway through, maybe even before that, and kind of comes out of nowhere.
Let's talk about the bubble update right now. It seems that Ryan Blaney is not having a good time right now. I think that's fair to say. He had a dismal weekend at Darlington. Richmond, which is his worst track statistically and mentally. He just hates going there. I don't have in front of me where he finished, but I think he may have finished inside the top 15, which makes that his best career finish there, which is saying something. And he's 27 points behind the cutoff right now, going into Bristol, which means that he is pretty much in a must-win scenario. He can do it. Matt DiBenedetto, that may be a bit of a taller task. He's in a similar position. But there's a couple drivers, Clint Boyer, Cole Custer, William Byron. They're all on the playoff bubble, and they could theoretically point their way in. But I want to focus on Blaney for this topic of conversation. Did you expect this much, struggle from the 12 team? And do you think that he's going to be able to climb out of the hole and maybe win at Bristol to vault himself into the next round?
I did not expect this. He's had a pretty strong season as it was. He had a kind of a what if side to his season. For example, Martinsville, where he and Truex were the class of the field, and Truex outlasted him near the end. But I didn't expect him to have this much trouble. I know Richmond's been kind of an Achilles heel for him the past few years, but I did not expect him to struggle this much in the first round. I will say would not be surprised if Bristol turns out well for him. I could totally see him winning. I think it was a couple of years ago he was leading about halfway through. He had a great car and then got caught up in lap traffic, which then crashed. Several of whom crashed in front of him and took him out.
Happened earlier this year there too.
That too. Yeah. I think that was Ty Dillon, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. I thought I remembered that. Yeah. And I could 100% see him winning at Bristol in a clutch scenario. I had him moving on further into the playoffs personally.
Everyone did.
But yeah, and it's been kind of really fascinating. I know, obviously, Richmond again an Achilles heel for him, but I'm just shocked. I honestly am.
That's the beauty of the playoffs, man. We got Austin Dillon running well, and we got Ryan Blaney who can't get out of his own way. That's why we love the playoffs. Well, Adam, thanks for joining me here today. I appreciate it. Wish we could have seen you this weekend at the track at Richmond, but hopefully we'll be able to do that next year. In the meantime, Enjoy Bristol this weekend. We'll see if Blaney can get out of the hole. We'll see if Austin Dillon can keep shocking the world. And we'll talk again soon. All right. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was able to hear the cars from the station, so that made up for it a little bit for sure.
That's the way to do it. Cool. Good deal.